So moving ahead, we come on to our next module, which is the LED screens, which is one of the most popular mediums for addressing larger audiences and larger gatherings these days. So earlier, sometimes you would think a screen is a screen is a screen, but no, every screen is different. The characteristic properties, everything is different. So, and even LED screens, there are two main characteristics. Of course, there are a number of points, but the two main things to understand in an LED screen is one is that we have an indoor screen, the other is we have outdoor screen. So, firstly, it is essential for us to know that indoor and outdoor screens are different, because a lot of times we keep getting this requirement that ये open में है या समंदर के सामने भी लगाना है, तो आपका ये 2.9 का जो screen है वो आप हमको यहाँ के लिए भेज दो. We've got some presentations happening and give us your screen, but they don't even mention where the screen they want to use, whether they want to use it in some outdoor environment or they want to use it for an indoor application. We only get the requirement of a screen, that we need a screen of this pitch. That is the only brief, and the size. So the pitch and the size is the only criteria. Indoor, outdoor, या और कोई criteria आता नहीं है. So we need, firstly, we need to understand what are the different criteria for asking for a screen. So when we go for indoor screens, the main characteristic for an indoor screen is it is used for close viewing distance in covered locations. An indoor screen is lower in because it is less in brightness. It is lower in terms of power consumption. It can only be used in a controlled operating temperature, which is usually about 0 to 40 degrees. This brings it, ideally you use them in banquet halls for weddings, conferences, or PowerPoint presentations. These are not dust proof, waterproof, and they are comparatively lesser in brightness because you don't need indoor screens to be so very bright. Some examples of indoor screens which I'm sure we've all used. Then when we talk about outdoor screens, so outdoor screens, outdoor screens, we'll understand the outdoor screen. So outdoor screens are your dust proof and waterproof. They have a very thick mask which will be able to take the impact of even your season ball or something. They are very high in brightness. So a normal outdoor screen could be anything between 4,000 to 8,000 nits. Nits is the unit of measurement of brightness. It has to be overpowering. If we want to see the screen in broad daylight, it has to be overpowering the sunlight falling on the screen. So, which is why we need those kind of brighter screens. And the operating temperatures could be anything like from -10 to +50 degrees. The so-called disadvantages that it is little, there is higher power consumption. We need a little more power. It is not recommended for smaller screen size, because for outdoor screens, essentially, it is mainly it is large pixels. Of course, now we get them in 3.9 mm pitch as well, but usually outdoor screens will come in 4.8 or 6 mm, 8 mm, etc. And they are mainly used, for open grounds, stadiums, or medium long viewing distance, or for live videos and graphics for concerts and all of those. So this is how an outdoor screen is made. There are bulbs, and then there are the masks. If you can see this, so these are the masks which will essentially protect the screen from any kind of impact, and will also protect it from the sunlight which is falling on the screen. These are some examples of outdoor screens which are seen in daylight. These are your boundary line or the perimeter screens, the way it is technically called. These are your scoreboards. So here, for all these screens, you're not really talking about very small font. Also, the sizes are very huge. Now, one thing that we usually talk about in an LED screen is the pixel pitch. हमको 2 mm pitch का screen चाहिए, 3 mm, 4 mm. So that is one thing which we always talk about. So we need to understand what is 2 mm or what is 3 mm, what is 4 mm, etc. So the pitch is the distance between two bulbs on the screen. So here you're seeing these two bulbs. So the physical distance between two bulbs is the pitch of the screen. this is, one of the criteria. This is not the only criteria. This is one of the criteria which the company says is supposed to be the minimum viewing distance of the screen. So when we say 1 mm pitch is 1 meter. So less than that, you will see the dots of the screen. But if you go beyond that distance, you will not see the bulbs on the screen. So similarly, if we're talking about 2.9 mm pitch, you need a minimum 2.9 meters distance or 10 feet. 3.9 mm is about 13 feet, 4.8 mm 16 feet, and so on. So if you have a 10 mm pitch, it would be 10 meters. उससे आगे हम आएंगे तो हमको बल्ब दिखेंगे, उसके पीछे we'll see it almost like a seamless image.
You know, I think, Kunalji, while you're explaining this, it's very, very important for all our agency friends to understand the application of these screens. Ricky Chaje has a question. Client often requests to put indoor LED screen for outdoor use. Ricky, I think you guys should know your own matter. We should know our own material. We should know what we stand for and where is the application of indoor versus outdoor. And I think that's the only way we can convince our clients. Most of these larger screens, Kunalji, if I'm not wrong, used in stadiums and cricket fields are 8 mm, 10 mm screens because the viewing distance is so much and the sort of brightness that you need as well is very important. So I think everyone, this is a very important part and we should all know our subject matter here.
Yeah, it is 8, 10, 16 mm, even the scoreboards and all. Initially, they all used to be 16 and 24 mm. Now people have been using 8 mm to 8 and 10 mm or 12 mm. But when the viewing distance is so huge, and the screen size is so big, we'll come to as to how to determine the minimum size of the screen. But when we have sufficient size and viewing distance, then you don't always need to use a 2.9 or a 3.9 mm screen, because your 2.9 and 3.9 mm screen, even if you manage to get indoor screens, outdoor screens in those kind of pitch, you will never get the required brightness.
There's a quick question. I'm going to take some questions here just for us to make it a little interactive from Darshan Shah. What's the limitation on using indoor LED for outdoor venues? Shaded or non-shaded, especially when it's an evening show majorly. So do you want to take this, please?
Yes, I'll take this. Indoor screen, see, the company technically will say you cannot use your indoor screen outdoor because your installation would typically be done maybe one day before or a previous night. There could be, unseasonal or unprecedented rain, or there could be too much of dust or moisture if we're doing some venue like Ambiveli in November, December. There is so much of moisture and humidity, and these indoor screens are not waterproof. So it could catch some kind of moisture, and there could be problems with the screen in the short run or in the long run. So for any of those kind of scenarios, it is always recommended to use a proper outdoor screen.
Also, can you tell them the difference between the brightness in indoor and outdoor screens as well? Because also that would make a big difference in it.
Yes. The brightness of indoor screen is typically, if we're talking about a 2.9 or a 3.9 mm or a 4.8 mm indoor screen, the brightness is usually about 1000 to 1500 nits. Whereas, if we're talking about outdoor screens, the brightness is anywhere between 4000 to 8000 nits. And the brightness of sunlight is also depending upon, of course, it depends upon the place where you are. But the brightness of sunlight could be somewhere around 5000 to 6000 nits, depending upon whether you're in Europe or you're in Rajasthan and all. So 4000 to 6000 nits could be the brightness of the daylight falling on the screen. So we need the screen which will overpower that brightness and give us a good bright image. Right. And also the time of the day. So if you're using it at night for a couple of hours, and if you are not able to get a proper outdoor screen, you have a smaller size and you want to use an indoor screen, it would chala sakte. It is not technically right. So their manufacturer would say that if you are using it in outdoor, your warranty is void. But practically, paisa recover bhi karna hai, use karna hai zyada time. So you do a morning or afternoon installation, you use it in the evening and you remove it. If it is not, your December time or something, then वो एक जुगाड़ है जो हम लोग यहाँ पे करते हैं, but technically it's a wrong.
No, a lot of people also think, Kunalji, that for some reason the a P3 or a 3.89 will be better to use outdoor than a 4.8 or a 6 mm, which is absolutely wrong. I mean,
those calculations are different, and 3.9 mm outdoor is also available in the market now.
Correct.
Yes, but of course it comes at a premium. So usually your outdoor screens which are popularly available are 4.8 mm pitch outdoor, whereas the 3.9 mm outdoor is a very premium product at this point.
Absolutely.
And usually, and also when we are using outdoor screens, we have so much of space, and you're not really using a 3 meter by 2 meter screen or something like that. We are using larger screens, which is giving us your minimum screen size and pixels. So we don't really need to use very fine pitch for outdoors.
Right.
If the size is big enough.
There's a troubleshooting question. Actually, this question's come from a couple of people. Often during shows, sometimes a single tile goes off or blacks out. Sometimes half the LED screen sometimes goes off and then it comes back on.
We're coming to that.
We're coming to that. Excellent.
Yeah, we have a slide for that.
Perfect.
So now how do we understand, what is the pitch? Suppose a vendor will say that I've got 2 mm pitch or I've got a 4 mm pitch. So how do we actually understand or calculate what is the exact pitch? Now, as discussed, the tile size, the standard tile size going is a 500 mm by 500 mm tile size. If the pixel resolution, meaning the bulbs on the screen, if we've got 50 pixels by 50 pixels, so 50 pixels left to right and 50 pixels top to bottom, then 500 divided by 50 is 10 mm. So which means 10 mm is the distance between two bulbs vertically or horizontally. So then our pixel pitch becomes 10 mm. Similarly, in the same 500 mm tile, if you got 125 pixels vertically and 125 horizontally, then it is 500 divided by 125. That gives us 4 mm pitch. So if you got 125 tiles, it becomes 4 mm, simple division. Same way, if you got 250 pixels in the same 500 mm tile, if you got 250 pixels vertically, horizontally, the pitch will become a 2 mm. So 500 divided by 250, you get 2 mm. So which means you actually have 250 physical pixels vertically and 250 horizontally, and the total number of bulbs that we have on the screen are 250 by 250, whatever the number, whatever the answer that we get. So here we come to that the other calculation that, to understand the pixel size of the screen and not just a screen size, that we say that we need a screen size of 10 feet by 8 feet or 15 feet by 20 feet or whatever, but what is the pixel? So if you have a 10 by 8 in a 1.9 mm, it will be very different. And if we have the same thing in 10 mm, it would be very different. So we need to understand that, how much pixels or what is the kind of resolution that we're getting out of any screen. So just taking the same example, if we have a 4 mm screen, which is, 5 tiles left to right and 3 tiles top to bottom. So here top to bottom 125 into 3, we've got 375 pixels, and left to right we've got 625 pixels. The same screen size, if we are doing a 10 mm pitch, we have only about 250 pixels left to right and 150 pixels top to bottom. So आप बोलेंगे कि नहीं ये 8x5 का स्क्रीन वो तो मेरा अच्छा दिख रहा था मगर ये इतना अच्छा नहीं दिख रहा है, but that is because the number of pixels are very less. And these kind of small screen applications come into play when we are doing pre-function areas, or when you're doing promotion on a canter or a truck or something. You've got outdoor screens, and you've got your size limitation, as well as outdoor may you working with 6 mm, 8 mm, 10 mm pitch screens, and your screen size is only about say 10 by 8 or an 8 by 6, and we are trying to show videos or something जिसमें ना text दिखेगा ना कुछ भी दिखेगा, because over there we need to understand that इतना छोटा screen size है, and if we are using 6 mm, 8 mm screens, then we are not able to make or display any proper content on that screen, and which is why we will not be able to appreciate the image. वही सेम आप बोलोगे नहीं लैपटॉप में तो अच्छा दिख रहा है, आपके स्क्रीन पे नहीं दिख रहा है, तो स्क्रीन खराब है. स्क्रीन खराब नहीं है, पिक्सल बहुत कम है, और even for a mobile phone image you need a minimum number of pixels to create an image or display an image. और यहाँ अगर हमारे पिक्सल ही इतने कम हो रहे हैं, 150 by 250 पिक्सल ये हो रहे हैं, these kind of screens are actually used for on your small trucks या छोटा हाथी के ऊपर इलेक्शन के प्रमोशन और करते हैं, भले उसमें वीडियो चलाते हैं, मगर फिर भी इतने कम अगर पिक्सल है तो आपका कंटेंट दिखेगा ही नहीं. एंड वी स्टिल गेट सो मेनी रिक्वेस्ट एंड रिक्वायरमेंट दैट हमको प्री फंक्शन में छोटा स्क्रीन लगाना है, ज़्यादा जगह नहीं है, क्लाइंट के ऑफिस में हमको स्क्रीन लगाना है, और आप 6x5 का स्क्रीन लगा दो 3.9 mm या 2.9 mm, लेकिन अगर 2.9 mm का 1.9 mm लगाएंगे फिर भी पिक्सल पिच इतना कम होगा that we'll not be able to give full justice to the content. So for any such kind of applications, it is always better to use either an LFD screen or an 84 inches or a 65 inches, your LED TV, where we will be able to get more pixel resolution rather than
Absolutely.
250 and 150 pixels.
Absolutely, it's a very common thing, especially for pre-function areas or activation spaces, etc. So Bala from Aura saying the screen size in the example shown is 5x3. Again, Bala, the whole point is that we're not talking about the size here. We're talking about the minimum pixels, and it does not depend on the pitch of the LED necessarily. Of course, a 1.9 or a 2.89 will be the right choice because of the viewing distance. So there are three factors. One is the size, the second is the pixels, and third is, of course, the pitch, which determines the viewing distance that you know. Once you know the space, you know the area, that's the application you have to put in. But I think what Mr. Bhatia is saying is that 800 by 600 is a minimum pixel resolution that your screen should have for clarity.
Even this is very less, because these days we are all used to HD images, and ideally I would like to have a screen of nothing less than a 1080 pixel in terms of height. And here again at this point, I would like to invite Suresh Madan to share an interesting slide, which explains the minimum kind of font that we had some questions on the minimum font to be used and the minimum and what kind of pixel pitch to use for what kind of application. So I would like to invite Suresh to explain this further.
Yes, I think this is very important because many times our clients ask us this, or the clients bring in presentations, and then we don't know what to do, we're lost, and we call multiple people and try to figure out. So please, over to you, Sureshji. Please activate your video.
I'm going to just share my screen. Can you confirm that you can see my screen? Can you see my screen?
No, Kunalji, I think you'll have to stop your screen share. In the meanwhile, Kunalji will just take a question. Are we getting to see flexible LEDs soon in India? Ricky Chajet wants to know that.
Flexible LED is of course available with a few select vendors, but flexible LED to get some desired required shapes and sizes is the next in thing, which is mainly in terms of design and content point. From the design point of view, it is not really to be used for PowerPoint presentations and all, but to get certain desired effects and to get some kind of cylindrical shapes and other things, flexible LED is already available in the country.
All right, back to Suresh Madan for his three-step process on screen design. Over to you, Suresh.
This is actually something which I think it's a very practical approach to answering a couple of very often asked questions. So let me see if I can. Now, as I say, this is a calculation that follows some practical assumptions that are common for indoor events. So let's start by making these assumptions and follow along, and all of this will start making sense in a minute. So irrespective of the screen size, whatever size our screen might be, let us first make one assumption that the height of the smallest character that we want to see on the screen is no less than 3.5%. Let's just understand this for a minute. Let's, for argument's sake, and I'm not saying LED or projection or anything at the moment. I'm saying let's just assume that our screen height is 100 inches. So we are making one assumption and saying there will be nothing that will be physically smaller than 3.5 inches. The second assumption that we're going to make is that the screen is starting about 4 feet from the ground. This tends to be more or less what we realistically do. Now the screen calculation is a three-step process. So in the first step, we are going to say that we want to first calculate what is the maximum image height that we can achieve. I'm going to try and illustrate this with an example of a real venue. I'm from Delhi, so I will use an example of, let us say, the Darbar Hall in the Taj Palace Hotel. The Darbar Hall has a 14.5 feet ceiling height, and it is a 100 feet by 100 feet approximately size of the venue. So if we say that we are aiming to start with a 4 feet off the ground, given 14.5 odd feet, we have roughly about between 10 and 10.5 feet available height. Kunal talked earlier about how you obviously feet is not relevant in LED, it has to be meters. So 3 meters. So now we have our first step that we know that we will have a 3-meter high image. The second aspect is determining our audience seating. So for whatever is the height of the image that we can achieve, we don't want our audience to be any closer than 2 times the height and not any further than 7 times the height. That means that for 2 times the height would mean 6 meters and 7 times the height in this case would mean 21 meters. Once we know these two things, we are going to say that we want to achieve 1080 pixels in the height. So 1080 pixels on a 3-meter high screen roughly translates into a 2 point something pitch, 2.8, 2.6, something thereabouts. So the first thing is that this method of working has given you the following inputs. Number one, you have got what is the height of the image that you want or you can achieve. This image is good for which part of your audience. Remember, we talked that this hall is 100 feet by 100 feet, which is roughly 30 meters by 30 meters. And of course, when we talked about an image height of 3 meters, we said that our nearest audience is 6 meters and the furthest is 21 meters. So what happens to the audience that is seated between 21 meters and 30 meters, the hall being 100 feet, roughly 30 meters? This is actually where you think in terms of a delay screen, that for that audience, it is too far away from the screen to see any content smaller than 3.5% the height of the screen. So this part of the audience actually needs a delay screen. If you take this thought process, if you follow the thought process to this point, you'll realize that the audience now that is you're catering to with the delay screen is the one seated between 21 meters and 30 meters. For an audience seated at 21 meter, if you say that I will use a 2-meter high image, right? I'm not yet thinking how you're going to put the delay screen, whether you're hanging it from the ceiling, whether you're putting it on the side on a pedestal. But if you said that I will put a 2-meter high image, then that screen would be actually 21 meter minus 4 meters. Remember, 2 times the height of the image. So the screen would be actually at 17 meters. That way, a 2-meter high screen, the audience that is supposed to look at this screen is at least 2 times its height, which means 4 meters away from it. And the furthest audience, which is 7 times the height, which is 14 meters away. Remember, 17 plus 14 is 31. So you will have a 2-meter high image. And the third formula, which was the 1080 pixels, now trying to achieve 1080 pixels in a 2-meter high image is going to be, I don't have my calculator in front of me, but I think it's going to be like around like a 1.9 pixel or something, 1.9 pixel pitch. This, of course, is not practical because that product is simply not available in the rental space. And in fact, this is where you start thinking in terms of projection, because what projection brings to the game is that you can have a variable size image with the same amount of pixels. If the projector is an HD projector, on 3-meter high image also it will give you 1080 pixels. For a 2-meter high image also it will give you 1080 pixels. For a 10-meter high image also it will give you 1080 pixels. So because the projector is such a display device where the pixel to size ratio is always in control, in your control, unlike an LED wall, the projector then becomes a good solution for the delay. Last but not the least, you want to think about brightness, because remember, you want to try and match the brightness of your delay screen as close as you can to the LED, and this will probably mean a fairly bright projector. Raghav, I'm not sure if all of that made sense to everyone.
I think your slide is informative, but maybe
I mean, look, you
take a while to sink in.
Yes, I know it's a slightly complex subject, and I have to compliment Kunal and how he manages to make complex subjects simple to understand. But if you just follow the steps that are in here, you arrive at the answers that you need, right? I mean, I mean, you really just want to know what pixel pitch LD screen you want to use, right?
Right.
That's really the only question that is
Yes,
answered.
and Suresh, adding to that, since we're not able to get this 1.9 mm screen for a delay, and for obvious reasons, there is never sufficient space to put projectors as delay. So the two practical options that we see at this point is either we use big size LED televisions. LED televisions is one of the things, or we can have bigger font size to compensate for the higher pixel pitch delay LED screens that we would use. What do you say?
So you're absolutely right. Of course, I mean, if one can achieve projection delay screens, I gave the example of Darbar Hall in the Taj Palace. Because it has rigging points, it's quite possible to rig projectors, and I mean, a 2-meter screen is barely 6 feet something. So it's very easy to rig a small front projection screen of that size, and it can work. In fact, for some international clients, we have in fact done that. The challenge with hanging big TV screens is that they are heavier. A 90-inch or 80-inch screen is heavier to hang. And the other aspect, of course, you're right, that if you simply can't do delay screens, if you simply don't have that option, then you can go back to the first starting presumption, which was 3.5% height of the screen, and you can increase your content size and say, okay, my content will be, well, 7% maybe, or 10% or whatever. So it just means that content makers have to be more cognizant of what size of smallest element of content they must make.
Right. So I'm just going to come in here, Sureshi. So guys, I think when you're briefing your designers, etc., you have to keep this thumb rule, into account. Whatever three things are mentioned on the left side, 3.5% of that should be the smallest. So if your screen height is say 10 feet, 3.5% of 10 feet is the smallest you can go. And some people have asked for a layout. We don't have a layout, guys. But what I just recommend, being from the same industry, is take a paper and a pencil, write it down, draw it out, and trust me, you'll understand it. You could take a snapshot of what Mr. Madan has shared, and I think you guys will definitely have enough time on hand to figure it out. So I think, thank you, Sureshi, for coming in there. And I think let's move ahead because we are also on a bit of a ticker here, gentlemen. All right, a quick message, but I think we may take this up later. What is the best method to sync the preview screen in the audience with the audio delay when there's a bit of a lag?
Okay. See, the video delay is inevitable because we have a number of points in between. Right from the delay, we mainly realize when we shooting. So from the camera to the video mixer to your switcher to the watch out server, if there is a watch out or something, then to the processor or the controller to the LED screen. And at each and every point or junction, there is maybe about 1 or 1.5 frame of delay, which is inevitable, which is technically also called the latency. So, we've all been striving to reduce the latency from the point of source to the final display image. And for that, practically what we've been doing is, for the main speaker, we try to take a separate camera feed bypassing the video mixer, so that we're trying to avoid that. Also, if we need for entry exit for Q&A or something, then we take two inputs and we keep switching. But the main feed we take a direct surpassing the video mixer, so whereby we eliminating delay. If we use good quality switches, we are reducing the delay. Also, the video processors, they tend to have a lot of delay. So by using controllers, which are more like sending cards, and by avoiding the processing of the video processors, we are also able to reduce the delay. So eventually, out of that entire 7 frames of delay, we are trying, and I think we've been able to bring it back to about 5 frames of delay or something. And you need to understand 1 second is about 25 frames. So when we're talking about 5 or 7 frames, so it is वैसे बहुत negligible लगेगा, but to the naked eye the delay is very visible. but up to about 3 frames, you don't really realize the delay. So it is only when it goes beyond 3 frames is when we notice it becomes, we realize the delay. One practical solution that we've been using is when we are also doing sound, or when we are allowed to do that in the PA, we are able to delay. So maybe if we can delay the PA by about 80 milliseconds, which is about 2 frames, then out of the total 5 or 6 frames, if we are delaying the PA audio, not the stage monitors, utna zyada problem nahi aayega. Maybe the sound guys technically may or may not agree, but this is the practical solution. Agar PA ko thoda sa humne delay kiya, then it will reduce the overall delay between your sound and the video. And जो delay का problem है, जो latency का problem है, that will be less visible.
Absolutely.
But it is inevitable.
Quick fix for all event managers and a really good pro tip to do that.
But do not go beyond 2 milliseconds, beyond 80 milliseconds, which is 2 frames.
And I think,
and that has to be done in consultation with the sound engineer.
If I may, always even brief the client that there is going to be this slight delay. That's what we always do as a rule. And, there's no point keeping things under wrap, because the client should understand the systems which are being used as well.
And the higher the resolution, if you use a 4K camera, you will have further delay, because there is that much more of signal processing to be done. So, but we should avoid as many multiple devices, and जितने कम device रखेंगे उतना हमारा delay कम हो जाएगा. And also watch out with the latest versions, and with the higher end processors and the higher end motherboards, we are able to reduce the delay to a certain extent, but we cannot eliminate. Okay, now the next slide, which we got this question of, at some points, why do we see that some of the tiles go blank? Now, if you're seeing your left and right screen, the right hand side, here you're seeing this black patch, and even here you're seeing this black patch. Whereas because you have your LED controller, and you need a certain number of signals from the controller to command and to configure and run the screen. So there is the option of hot backup. So here, if we need 2 cables from one processor will have multiple ports. Some processor would have 2, some would have 4, some would have 16. So to be able to attain this hot backup, we actually need to use double the inventory in terms of controllers and cables. So here you see the green cables, which are used as the master cables, and the red ones are the backup cables. So we actually need to to do the cabling twice. Here we've shown it from one end, but your master and backup is done at the opposite end. So if your master is, your 2 green signals are coming from here, your backup signals, they will go behind and they will start from here. And when we do 100% hot backup, chances of failure are very minimal, unless there is some problem with the controller or something. But otherwise, your signal failures can be reduced to a larger extent if you're doing 100% hot backup in terms of the data signal.
Karan, if I can just add one line here,
Sure,
and I
sure.
think you did mention it, but I wanted to sort of reiterate it, because this is something that this question pops up quite frequently.
Sir, your video.
I'm not that pleasant to look at. Yeah, people can hear me. So what I'm saying is that this is a question that pops up quite frequently, where people say, okay, well, how can we guarantee that we won't have this? There are 2 parts to my answer. One is that you can't guarantee it, even with all the money in the world and all the brightest brains working on it. Even the space shuttle does burn up. So technology will fail sometime or the other. You just have to accept it, but you can take adequate precautions. Of course, what Kunal mentioned in terms of running a main line and a backup line for the signal duplicates the number of cables. But in fact, you could go one step further and actually run the entire controller as in a main and a backup configuration, which is to say that one controller serves all the main lines and the other controller serves as the backup line. It's the same discussion, same point of view or same approach that I mentioned earlier in terms of projectors, that if you have one signal going to 2 projectors through a DA, your point of failure now has moved from the projectors to the DA. So ideally you want to remove the point of failures as many as possible. And in this instance with LED, it typically means using 2 controllers. So what may not be very evident to a lot of people initially, but it does in fact pretty much duplicate the inventory, it doubles the inventory. So for our event manager brethren, colleagues, please do keep that in mind.
So typically works as a master and slave is typically that's the system we're adapting there.
So literally you have a signal that's coming in that you want to put up to the screen, like in the diagram that Kunal is sharing, it's coming, he's shown a signal coming from a laptop or a watch out server. And then you would either I would prefer to use an external splitter and go into two controllers, one main and one backup. The main controller would service all the main lines, and the backup controller would service all the backup lines. Essentially, it moves the risk from what if your controller's power supply packed up. Then you're going to lose all your main and backup lines at the same time. With this approach, should your controller fail, you would still have a second controller servicing the backup lines. Of course, the argument then is, what if the splitter packs up?
Absolutely, and that was also telling me to another question, that how much is too much in terms of backup? And
that's a lovely question, Raghav. How much is too much is always going to be a very subjective question, because one line of thought also is that the more parts you put into a scheme, that's that many more things to manage and that many more potential failure points.
Absolutely.
There is no one correct answer, to be honest. In my mind, it is advisable to have a splitter and have two processors and in and backup cabling. Yes, it remains that your splitter could fail. Also, on the other side, at the source side, where you're saying a laptop or a server, typically most professional companies do run a backup server in parallel to their main servers, so there is a risk mitigation there already. But no scheme ever, technical scheme ever, can be made to be foolproof. If such were the case, you would not have a space shuttle burner. Remember, there's a lot more money and brains going at it than we do. Yet they have that.
I understand, and unfortunately,
risk is always there, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately,
keep mitigating that risk lower and lower and lower.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm an event manager, and there are some questions here as well. What happens? We're consultants to the client. We come to you as consultants as well. That way, there's a backup for everything. And where does that really stop? We have backups for generators. So, there's a question from Ricky Chajed also, Kunalji, in this regard, that clients these days are asking to get a backup server part of, the same fees without the inclination to pay for the backup server. I mean, do we look at this as an industry practice? Because, ultimately, all fingers pointing at agencies typically at the end of the day, which puts us in a really tough spot. And then we're just sitting there negotiating with multiple friends / suppliers / partners as to, what's happening. We are in the business of risk mitigation. I understand that. But, we need some sort of a solution to something like this.
Kunal, do you mind if I share my point of view on this?
Please continue.
So here's my thought, Raghav. If you and I have a very important meeting to attend, we know tomorrow we have to be somewhere for sure. I mean, of course, we're assuming we're not in lockdown, but in the normal days, you and I have a very, very important meeting to attend. And, we know we have to be there at 11 and we know it takes half an hour to get there. We might be extra cautious and say, okay, you know what, I'll give myself an additional 15, 20 minutes and start at 10 instead of 11, instead of 10:30 to reach by 11. And even if I reach half an hour early, I'll sit in my car, read a book or whatever, right? But hey, you come down at 10 from your house and discover you got 2 flat tires in your car overnight. Now what are you going to do? You're going to look for a cab, you're going to try and fix it, you're going to do something. But no matter what you do, you're probably going to not make it by 11. So despite the degree of importance, you're probably going to do the next best thing, which is call the client or call whoever you're meeting and apologize profusely and rush as much as you can and somehow make it. But if you and I are removed from this equation and the person we're talking about happens to be the Prime Minister of India, when he travels to mitigate this risk, his cavalcade has 3 cars. So that if one were to break down, he just steps into the next and life goes on without a hitch. Absolutely. That's the concept of backups, right? And to address the question about should clients expect it, should agencies expect it, should it be part of the delivery? Tricky ground there. It depends on how you engage. If you're engaging as, if you say I am supplier of equipment, then somebody's got to pay for it. right? You're supplying equipment. More equipment means more money, more fees, whatever you want to call it. But if you're a supplier of a service, then it's part of your service delivery. But then just like you do not put any commoditization to deliver service pricing, you don't go to a doctor and say, hey, doc, you're a lovely doc, but can you charge me 800 rupees instead of your $1,000 fee? Right? You don't go to a lawyer.
Yeah, because the other doctor is charging so less, and why are you charging more?
Exactly. So you're a doctor, he's a doctor, why are you 1,000 and why is he 200?
Right.
So when you remove the commoditization of it and you treat it as a service, then the service provider will say, okay, I want to be a service provider who guarantees or gets as close to guaranteeing delivery. So I will build all of these backups into my offering, but my offering is no longer now commoditized into one server equal to so many rupees, one projector equal to so many rupees, one LED equal
Absolutely. You know, that's
actually is equal to this much. This is it. And I'm a doctor. And
that's actually the support that a lot of us do expect, you know, at times from service providers.
So
anyway,
I think it goes both ways.
Absolutely.
Responsible partners practice a degree of
absolutely
backups to protect their reputation.
Right.
At the same time, beyond the point, there is a cost implication to somebody.
Right. So I think this is a never-ending discussion, which we can have a whole different session on. So Kunalji, quick question. Are all LED panels equipped with a secondary line patch system? So you can kind of patch them both ways for a backup?
Yes, all panels, they have the provision. It is upon the vendor,
Right.
whether he chooses to do that, because he will have to have that much more equipment and hardware
Right.
to do it. So the LED panels are able to take it. It is upon the choice of the vendor.
Affect the power source, power requirement? Not really,
No,
right?
no,
so you're
no,
using
no.
either or, you're not using both at one time.
No, and even if it's just one additional processor, which is hardly any power consumption,
Great.
it's just like a consumption of a laptop or a DVD player or something. So that is inconsiderate.
That's clear, and I think you can take us further.